Hey traders, welcome to the Labor Day market update, starting with US equities. Just give me a second. Okay, so obviously the S&P still goes kind of marching forwards, marching onwards towards our kind of 4,700 target that we have currently. But again, we're still sitting on very thin markets. A lot of these equities still looking very bearish, and we remain with our bearish overview market in general and a bullish view on a couple of the fangs, not all the fangs, but most of the fangs, as a main driver to get these markets up towards that 4,700 region. Very, very risky regions at the moment to be long with any meaningful long-term outlook, given how overextended we are. Just going back to the weeklies, we can just see how overcooked these markets are. You can just see basically a straight line up since and if any kind of Fed taper talks start to come into play, as some are suspecting, then we definitely are going to see a little bit of a sell-off from these levels. So just have to be really cautious with where you're sitting at the moment, how you're positioned. Like we said, we remain long S&P with a target of 4,700, with a very thin market, so bearish generally speaking. The Nasdaq, another one that has room to run. It should continue to run. If we look for upside targets on the Nasdaq, we can see that we're looking at around about 44.55 as our target up there, on triple Q. And then the Dow Jones, not as bullish, structurally speaking, not as clean. So I prefer the Nasdaq over the rest. And then the Russell, still kind of chopping around in this range. But I do believe if we get a break above these levels, above this high at 2367, we should see a continuation, and quite a big continuation at that. We should have an upside target for that at around about, just work this out, around about 2971 is the full target there. We have to be just really cautious about that though, because so obviously full of more speculative stocks with the potential for a bigger sell-off moving forward. That's why I'd prefer to just stay with the Nasdaq and stay with the fangs as our longs. Our Facebook longs from around about 330 has been doing well, sitting at 376. Upside target there, sitting at, let me just get confirmation, sitting at around about 421. So we're approaching that full target region already on Facebook. Kind of in the danger zone already, but still some potential upside, and obviously the possibility for this to get extended, especially if we start to see the dollar rally and kind of go into a risk-off mode where foreign currency starts to flow into the US markets. They'll definitely be flowing into the fangs, which you could see Facebook getting up towards the 500 level. Upside target a little bit higher than what we were seeing in the rest. And just go out to the dailies. See what we have here. Upside target around about 211. So obviously a little bit more upside available to us than we saw on Facebook. Amazon definitely languishing. The rest of this, the things are long from 142 is performing really well. Structurally speaking, I was looking for a little bit of a dip first before we got there, but it's very possible. This is more of a triangle than anything else. But structurally speaking, not as clean and clear as you would like it to be. So there's still a potential that we get a little bit of a dip first, back down towards kind of 145, but still looking good for our upside target and still lots of room to run there. So still like the long in Apple. So that was Apple, not Amazon. And then Amazon, structurally speaking, had its final dip, does look like it's ready to run higher from here. And when we look at these targets for that, if we have bottomed out at this 3,200 region, then our upside target is around about 5,184. So again, lots of upside to come on Amazon as well. And I do believe we're going to have a bit of a blow off top in these fangs. Microsoft just continues to rally strongly, sitting at its minimum target, potentially still a bit more upside there. But again, one that's a bit more overcooked. I prefer Apple and Amazon in this scenario. But again, another one that could just continue to run to around about 400. Google, even more so than Microsoft, being overcooked, basically just a vertical line without much correction. So we don't really like that as our upside carrier because of how overcooked it is. I much prefer Facebook, Apple, Amazon, but no doubt if they are going to run, Facebook, Apple, Amazon going to run, you can expect Microsoft and Google to follow suit. Netflix still on the fence here, sitting, having broken its highs, it's now kind of completed a complex structure of some form here that we haven't really broken down. We'll probably have to look at it as something along these lines, a corrected structure that's quite complex, that is now complete and breaking higher. If that is the case, then we have an upside target there, sitting at around about 760. So another one that looks pretty good, making new highs, but I don't really like the structure that we saw there. It's a little bit complex and not very clean and clear as we would like it to be. So more inclined to sit on the sidelines in Netflix and focus our longs on Facebook, Apple, Amazon, and then Microsoft and Google kind of languishing behind those just because of how overbought they are. Now we're going into the other stocks. If we go into something like AMD, big move off the highs and looking very corrective for now. Very early days, still chance that this gets a little bit more corrective for further upside. But as as it stands, it's looking corrective for further downside. So waiting patiently for that short setup there. Going into Bank of America Corporation, you can see another kind of short setup that we've had that looks to maybe have been completed. If we continue to see downside here, we'll look to engage in the short from this 36 region and potentially higher up if we get a good setup on the lower time frames. But so far so good in terms of a topping out. You can see a little bit of a head and shoulders pattern forming there. We do believe that's the top for Bank of America. We're just waiting for that short entry to give us clarification there. Alibaba, I still like the long in Alibaba, getting a little bit of upside so far the last few days in Alibaba. So far up kind of 10% off the lows, just waiting for confirmation there. And we suspect further upside there moving forward. I'm going to kind of get rid of this little structure here and assume that what we're seeing here is the lows in Alibaba. But we do need to wait for confirmation there. Berkshire Hathaway, another one, just waiting for that short setup. Another one that's kind of given us that as a potential in the current region and starting to see a little bit of downside there. So waiting for that to get more downside, definitely looking to engage in a short setup there below those lows. Citigroup is another one, probably more clear than any of the other financials with potential downside to come as it's got a very, very clean setup. Again, just waiting patiently to see what forms here, but entry order below the lows as the shorts is definitely on the cards. Would have really liked to have seen 83, 84 broken here, but that just means we're sitting with a wave failure and could get some potentially strong downside here. Generally speaking, I'm very bearish financials at the moment and just waiting for those setups, but that should give us the biggest moves moving forward. CCJ exploding out of this. We were kind of unsure the price action here. I said if you do believe in the long, then you want to look to get in long from these 1850 region, and so far that's just moved in a straight line up. So just waiting to see how that clarifies itself. But uranium is on a bit of a tear at the moment. And if that is the case, we can expect upside target to be around about that 26 region. Just want to see how that fits in with the higher time frame structure. And 26 is the minimum of the higher time frame structure. So potentially a region in there. So up in here, we're starting to look for a shift and a turn. So maybe we are going to go see those levels in uranium before we see the turn to the downside. CMG, Chipotle, still continues to march up towards its full target at 2219. Not much there. If you're not in the long, you want to start to look to take some position off over the next few weeks as that structure plays itself out. DraftKings, still part of this ABC corrective structure, now sitting in that sell zone that we were looking for up above this A wave. I do believe that should continue to lose momentum and start to shift to the downside. Same with Penn stocks, got a little bit of upside the last few days, but I do believe that's just going to fade as this corrective structure completes itself and we start to see further downside moving forward. Clean this chart up a little. Disney, still kind of chopping around in this region, not much in terms of upside movement. especially since we saw pretty surprising move in earnings to the upside, and all we've seen since then is downside. I do believe this is a corrective move for continuation to the downside with a full target around about 130, so remain bearish there. Expedia continues to sell off down towards our full target at 105. That's doing pretty well. Ford continues to chop around, waiting for the structure to kind of give it some clarity here. We did suspect potentially a move up to 14 for a sell-off from there, depending how the structure plays out. But so far, just remaining with that bearish look that it has. And again, just starting to get a little bit of a sign that we're seeing a head and shoulders top here. So maybe a move down towards kind of 12, then a pop higher up towards 14 as the right shoulder, and then a continuation to the downside from there. GDX getting a little bit of upside the last few days, but I still have the bearish outlook there. That shouldn't change. That should continue to drop down towards the 12 region. I still remain bearish gold. I do suspect there was a little bit of upside coming gold, and gold is now approaching an area of resistance that should form and start to see some downside there. Goldman Sachs just waiting for that topping pattern to form. As you can see, getting some really big divergence on the higher time frames on the MACD. And waiting for that short setup to form there. Same with Morgan Stanley, definitely on the higher time frame in the sell zone region, and now just waiting for that topping pattern to form. I remain bearish. Financials, as I said. IBB, surprising little move pop higher from this region at 170, but we still have a bearish outlook here from both the medium and higher time frames. So might see a double top in this and start to see downside. Our short setup is still sitting in this 162 region. If we make new highs, we'll have to reassess that. But I still believe we should see downside in the general. So still waiting for the short setup there. IBM still chopping around, still in the mixed area. I would love to see a pop up towards 162, 170 to get into the full sell zone. But again, this could just be a wave failure, which means further downside to come following this little flag. So there's a little bit of a flag lined up here. So I think a short entry below these lows definitely valid. There's a little bit of a gap still open here. So I think getting short from this 136 region, 136.50, somewhere in there, is a good place to get short. Stop around about 145, nice and tight. And hopefully we get a nice deep sell-off from that break to the downside. We'll have to manage our stop loss quite closely with this one, because it's very possible we just go break these lows and then make that final surge up towards 160, 170 before the sell-off continues. But we don't want to miss the short on this. Our downside target on that short is sitting around about 60. So probably even more than that, probably more like 50 if we do move from here. So definitely want to get that short if we can, get the setup, and we don't want to miss that sell opportunity. So just have to manage that a little bit more closely. Intel is another one. We've remained bearish. We're looking for a little bit of a pop higher, which we've gotten so far over the last few days, and waiting for this to pop a little bit more up towards 57-ish, 58, maybe get a little bit more choppy in here. That may take some time to kind of form, but definitely a sell from this region is on the cards for further downside. Johnson & Johnson is another one that we're expecting downside. Got some nice downward momentum from that 180 region, touched 172, had a little bit of a pop higher now. I suspect this is a good sell zone now from this 170 region down towards kind of 150 to 156. And then we can flip that around to get into the long. The setup looks really good. The structure looks really good. Might be a little bit of a choppy C wave down, but looking really good for that move down towards 155 and then a continuation to the upside from there. JP Morgan, another financial that's given us a little bit of a short setup, sitting at the top of what potentially should be a C wave, get another dip down towards 140, 144, somewhere in there, one more pop higher, and that's going to play out as a nice expanding triangle. That will be our short setup. Not the cleanest setup ever. We don't like expanding triangles, but it is part of the uncertainty of these charts. And again, you just got this head and shoulders type structure at the high. So any short opportunities we definitely want to take, and it's going to be a nice big dip down towards kind of $100, maybe 90, maybe even further. So I like the short there. Live Nation still chopping around, but still like the short setup there, waiting for that to clarify itself. MicroStrategy, kind of potential for both worlds here, depending how you look at it. and just waiting to see how that plays out. So just being patient there. Nvidia popped higher from our buy zone at 180, sitting at 220 now, going into extended levels, but another one that could just really get overextended up towards a full target of 260 or extended target of 260 to 280. And looks like it wants to do that considering the run it's had. So just waiting patiently there. We'll have to wait and see if there's a short setup following this, but if you are long 185, you may have taken some off at this 220 region, now just holding for a little bit of a drive higher. Pfizer getting some really nice downside so far from our sell zone up towards this region, and downside target on Pfizer much lower from here. A little bit different to Johnson & Johnson, where it's not just a short setup in the short term, but the longer term, you should see quite a brisk move down towards 20 to maybe even as low as kind of 14 to the downside there over the next few months heading into next year. But looking really bearish from the structure we've seen so far. Riot, another one that just continues to give us a mixed picture. Still higher time frame, still like the short setup. Longer time frame, I think a break above these highs will give you an opportunity to get long short here. So waiting for that to clear itself out, waiting for this lower time frame structure to give us a clearer picture as to what it's doing. But so far remain bearish on the higher time frames. Ross Stores starting to get some downside finally. Just a really complex little structure here. If we look at the structure itself, we might see another bounce off these lows at this 150 region, the support zone that we have formed over the last few months. Might see another bounce up to 125 and then a continuation down from there if the structure is going to complete itself. But our short that we had here at this 115 is finally in the money. And hopefully we can see some continuation to the downside from there moving forward. Spirit Airlines, we're looking for a bit of a pop up to 27 to get another sell opportunity. Chopping around here, which is exactly what we want. We want a little bit of choppiness in here before pop higher towards 27, 27.50, 28, somewhere in there. Then we look to re-engage the short. Starbucks getting some nice downside off the highs now, just waiting for that short setup to form a little bit of a corrective structure. Then we can start to look for the short there. Seagate Technologies is another one that has had a big move off the highs. Now we're just waiting for a corrective structure to form. It's still early days here, waiting to get some clarity onto exactly what we're going to see there. So that's just a patient game of patience. AT&T marching lower from here, which is really nice structure, still working out really well. Did see something about Warren Buffett looking at buying AT&T stock, which is interesting because we have a nice long setup for potential buy at this 22 region once we're down there. So we'll be waiting for this turn to the upside from this kind of 22 level. But so far, so good on the short from 33 down towards this region. That should maintain its momentum to the downside moving forward. There's earnings on 21st of October, which we'll need to keep an eye on. But so far, so good with that short setup. Visa continues to march lower, in line with our strategy that we had, trading long Visa, long short MasterCard. We clipped our Visa long at this 0.786 region and started to get the downside there. And that was matched with a short in MasterCard, which is paying off really nicely now, making a kind of retreat down towards the 320 zone. Then we can start to look at getting long both of these stocks in around about this region here for Visa, around about 200 to 210 there, more like 217, 215, and then MasterCard, kind of the same thing, look to get long from this level here. So been a very, very beautiful trade, very elegant. We should see another leg higher in both of those now moving forward. XOM, our oil stocks are all shorts doing well from our 64 region, going down towards 44. We will look to get long in earnest, long-term investments in oil from this level, especially in Chevron, which is a much cleaner setup than the others, but definitely long all the oil stocks from this level. But so far, the short setup's been doing well. Zoom, big gap down from our flag setup that we had there, and the structure's playing out really nicely. So far, we should see a downside target of around about 152 on this one. So the short there is working really well for us. LMT continues to march lower. This was also another nice short setup that we had, moving down towards the 320 region. So that's doing well. Members know all about this one. In our we broke this entire trade down in detail in section 7 of the course. That's playing out really nicely. PayPal, a little buy opportunity at 260, if you were looking to take it, is now marching higher, and we're looking to get short PayPal from this kind of 310 to 320 region down towards 220. The structure itself looking really nice and playing ball with our analysis. And finally, Tesla still chopping around, still waiting for a short setup on this one. There's kind of a short-term short once you break this trend line down towards probably around about 500. Then we'll get another rally up from there, and that whole structure will be a nice complex structure for the longer-term short from there. So just waiting for this to play out, but definitely a short setup from this region once this trend line is broken. Getting some nice divergence there. If you look at the 4-hour, you probably get some really nice divergence on the 4-hour, as you can see. So the setup's definitely starting to kind of manifest itself as almost like a rising wedge that we have in here. So a breakdown from there will definitely be a sell in my book. And then ARK. Surprising to see a little bit of a rally in ARK following a break of this little structure that we had. Just means it's developing somewhat more of a complex structure in here somewhere. A B, C, D, E, something along those lines, but definitely still looking for the short somewhere in this region, remaining short ARK, and that should hit some really strong downside from that 125 region all the way down towards 80 on the higher time frame. The structure is very, very much in line with that move. So we remain bearish ARK, bearish Tesla, bearish Zoom. A lot of the stuff that is ARK invested in, we remain bearish there. So pretty clean watch list, as you can see, as we maintain our structure of long S&P, long Nasdaq, long FANGs, and basically short the rest. We'll add a long Alibaba into the mix there, but basically short the rest, just showing you how weak these markets are, thin these markets are. Definitely on track for a bit of a sell-off moving forward. More than likely got to do with Fed tapering and a withdrawal of liquidity, but could be anything at this point, given how fragile the global financial system is at the moment. So looking for those short setups, looking to benefit from that volatility and so forth with the analysis. Cool, guys. Have a great Labor Day. Enjoy your break. Back to the markets tomorrow. Members, we'll see you in the members area. Check us out at senecalytics.com or at Senecalytics on Twitter. Let me just type this out for you. Senecalytics.com or at Senecalytics on Twitter, where we can give you more information about our course and you can follow more of our work more closely. It's cool, guys. Hope you have a great one, and we'll chat again soon.